he was like a dedicated asshole. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Survive This Crit. First thing, as a little housekeeping item, you may have noticed with our Child's Play RPG that we broke it up into 4 parts and we were posting every week. We are going to continue posting every week. So our deep dives are going to be broken into 2 parts. One of it is going to be our thoughts and opinions and a little bit of an introduction of the film. And part 2 is going to be our full deep dive. We just wanted to create more space so that way we can dive into things a little bit deeper. And our RPGs are going to be broken into 4-part mini anthologies. So make sure to check back in with us every Friday and we will have something new for you to enjoy. And as you may have clicked on the title of this film, you may realize that it is the 50th anniversary of the movie Jaws. So go support your local theaters. There are a ton of local screenings happening for this film. There's celebrations happening in Martha's Vineyard if you happen to be out on the East Coast. And I believe Universal Studios is going to be doing something as well. So make sure to check out your local theater, support Jaws, watch it on the big screen, and support our movie theaters. All right, guys, let's dive in. I'm Kylie, your host, and with me as always is...
Hey everyone, it's me, Nick. Glad to be here. And Kylie, just take a real quick moment here. I just wanted to say thank you. You were mentioning the breaking up our episodes into different pieces. For those who don't know, Kylie handles most of our editing as well, on top of being a great host. So she's really taken it upon herself to do this. And I just want to say, appreciate you, Kylie. Thank you. And, this is going to be wonderful to, see how things work out with this new format.
Yeah. So make this worth it for my editing. Like and subscribe.
Or else.
Or else. All right. So if you are new to this show, you should realize that we do things a little bit differently around here other than every other movie analysis podcast. We take time to analyze the movie, but we also ask the all-knowing question, could we survive this horror movie? By creating our own homebrew RPG games using metrics like Call of Cthulhu, Dungeons and Dragons, and Monster of the Week, and we play through to see if we can survive. So join us as we break down this 2-part deep dive, and then we'll dive into our 4-part RPG. Nick, would you like to give us a summary of the film that we're doing?
Yes, I would gladly do that. Summary of Jaws. Here we go. All right, so after a young woman is killed by a shark while skinny dipping near the New England tourist town of Amity Island, Police Chief Martin Brody wants to close the beaches, but Mayor Larry Vaughn overrules him, fearing that the loss of tourist revenue will cripple the town. He might be right. Shark Doctor Matt Hooper and grizzled ship Captain Quint offer to help Brody capture the killer beast, and the trio engage in an epic battle of man versus nature, never before seen except in The Old Man of the Sea.
I as we were reading that summary and you approached the word oh gosh. All right, I think we both have to try to pronounce it once. Ichthyologist?
See, that's why I just said Shark Doctor. I was like, I'm not even. Nope.
I was hoping as we were approaching that, I was like, I know I can't pronounce that word.
Ichthyologist.
Ichthyologist. That's how okay, I found a ichthyologist.
Ichthyologist?
Ichthyologist, which means it's a
Shark
zoologist or fish scientist, aka a shark doctor.
There we go.
We found it. An ichthyologist. That is your word of the day, everybody. Try to figure out how to spell that. All right. A brief introduction of this film. It was released June 20th, 1975. It was directed by the Steven Spielberg, who's known as a pioneer of the new Hollywood age, known for E.T., Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, etc. But we have a bit more on him later. I will say as one quick fact, he was only 27 years old when he directed this film. And this was his second piece of media in Hollywood. This film also had multiple writers, including the novelist of Jaws, Peter Benchley. But we'll have more on that in our next episode as well. This film was distributed by Universal Pictures, where the original practical effect of Bruce is still lovingly on display on the studio tour. And Joshua and I actually also got to see the other shark that was caught last year in the studio off the lot tour, so I'll make sure to include a couple pictures of that. The budget for this film was originally about $4 million, but with the extending of the shooting schedule and shooting complications, it ended up being somewhere between $7 to $9 million. On top of that, this film was only supposed to be a 50-day shoot, but it ended up being 155 days, which is kind of unheard of that you would, I mean, now it's a little bit more common now that we've had COVID, writers' strikes, a lot more things like that. But shooting over 100 days more than the plan is pretty insane.
That's 5 months of filming. That sounds intense.
Yeah, right? It sounds very intense. The gross for this film, the opening weekend was $7.9 million. Domestically, it made $273 million. Internationally, made $210 million, making it a total of $474 million, which, adjusted for inflation, the domestic run would be $1.5 billion today.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to just take this moment then, since we're bringing it up, Kylie, to stress this was historic. These numbers for this type of film. I don't know if people realize this, but back in 1975 when this film was released, the summer months were apparently, and this is what I found out from my research, were apparently the dumpster seasons for cinema releases. The concept of releasing your hot movies during the summertime was it was unheard of. People were like, oh, only teenagers go to see movies. We don't care. So I remember, here's the thing, is I remember it was a few months ago we talked about The Mummy and being like, oh, The Mummy is one of the first original blockbusters. Kylie, I think we have to admit here that we were wrong.
Yeah, we have to take that back. Jaws takes the place.
The original summer blockbuster. Jaws apparently started it all.
Yes. So we have to retract ourselves there. It's the birth of the summer blockbuster. It was number 1 for 14 weeks in a row, which is pretty insane. The fact that it maintained number 1 movie for over 3 months is crazy. This film also was nominated and won multiple Academy Awards. And I'll include links below to some of the Academy Awards speeches from that year, because it's kind of cool to watch the Academy Awards from the 70s. It was so different than how it's run now. It was really entertaining to watch. But it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Sound, Best Music, and Best Editing. It won for Best Sound, Best Music, and Best Editing. So definitely take a look. Don't worry, everyone's speeches are 30 seconds or less, unlike today. But make sure to check it out. It was really cool to watch these old videos of the Academy Awards. They also won multiple BAFTAs and multiple Golden Globes. A lot of them were for Best Screenplays, Best Director, Best Film. And we have a tomato meter for this film. What do you think the tomato meter was for this movie?
Oh no, the tomato meter. My arch nemesis. Let's see. So critics scores where we always start with, and I'm gonna say it's Jaws. I mean, I can't be wrong with guessing high numbers here. So I'm just gonna go for 85%. I feel like that's a high score, but I don't think people were like, oh, this is 100%. So 85 is where I'm making my settlement there.
You know what? The tomato meter was actually a whopping 97%.
Okay. You know what? I'm not even mad about
now
that.
Now you gotta calibrate there a little bit to get the audience the popcorn meter score.
Okay. So 97%. Wow, that is impressive. Okay. This time I don't feel like the audience score would differ that much. So I'm going to go ahead and say Jaws I'm just going to be a little different. So I'm going to say 98%. I was trying to think high or low.
Oh no. So this, the audiences actually gave it a 91%.
Okay. So
no matter how you calibrated, it didn't quite work. But that's okay. Most of the reviews, I was kind of looking to see if I could find like a really scathing review, and I really couldn't. Most of the reviews were very positive. They called it terrifying, they called it brilliant. I mean, I think this is the highest tomato meter film that we've done so far. I don't think any of them have been a 97%. But,
I hoped and thought that this could be the first,
I know. Well, what do you think our Letterboxd users thought about this film? Because they had some opinions, let me tell
Really?
you.
Okay. I definitely want to hear those opinions, but before we, I'll say what I guess the score was here. I'm gonna say, to stay consistent, 4.5 stars. No, wait, take that. 4 stars. 4 stars is where I'm going with here.
They gave it a 3.9 out of 5.
Even
You
okay.
were so close.
You know what?
The
That's close.
calibration down to 4 was perfect. Yeah, you did great. So a couple reviews that people gave about this film, users gave. Boy08 said, boring. I watched the whole movie, but only actually 10 minutes. They gave it a 0.5 out of 5. I told you, some of the reviews are crazy on this platform.
Well, here's my thing is that like I only can agree just a little bit, and we'll get into that when we talk about our opinions. But I don't think that's totally on base, is what you said.
No,
so.
I mean I think it's 0.5 out of 5 is a little harsh, but
that is, yeah.
A 5 out of 5 from Sean, who said all my reviews are 10 words or less. Anyway, this movie directed the hits, which I would agree with. So yeah, the reviews were very entertaining to read on Letterboxd, as they always are. They were either really highly rated or like really rated quite low for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it say it's either an absolute masterpiece or really boring. And one quote that a viewer named Sydney left was, "The most important part of horror is restraint. This film is perfect." And I think the use of restraint in this movie, whether it was intentional or not, as we'll talk a little bit more in next week's episode, is so important here. Like, they're not just flashing a giant shark at us the whole time. They use a lot of restraint with what they're doing as a film. It's really, really very smart. So just wanted to add that in there. But yeah, that's a brief introduction and some reviews about this movie. Nick, I believe you have some trivia for me.
I do. So now it's time we move into our monster movie trivia. Jaws.
I like that you tried to sing it too. Monster movie trivia.
Well, I can't sing, Kylie. Only so that's about as close to singing as you're gonna get.
I agree with you. Only because I've jammed out with you many sessions, but that's okay. That's okay.
I like to stay within my range, which is very small.
the talking range.
The talking range.
Sing out, Louise. We love it.
I will explain it for any new listeners out there. We switch this off every episode, or every deep dive. But basically, I've come prepared with 10 trivia questions. Now, in the past, we've done things like what was the budget of the film, whatnot. But right now, these questions are going to be solely focused on, did Kylie pay attention during the movie? So we're going to stay within that scope. And basically, as we run through these questions, every time Kylie gets a question wrong, she is going to get a slash. Or in this case for Josh, she's going to get a bite taken out. And 3 bites, she's dead. She's out. So we will obviously run through all 10 questions, though, for anyone else who just wants to, play along while they listen. But that's the general rules here for today.
All right. Let's freaking go. I am historically bad at trivia, but I am the first one who also got a 100% on one of the trivias we did. So.
And I'm just consistently bad.
You know what? I also am not very easy on you. Sometimes I feel like you scale the questions to me, and I'm always like, what's the hardest question I can ask Nick? How can I trip him up? So you're much nicer than I am. I guess I don't know that for this trivia yet, though. So.
Okay. Well, here we go. Ready? You ready?
I'm ready.
Cool.
Hopefully I don't die.
First question. What is the name of the arcade game we see someone playing right before the scene where the shark attacks the group of tourists that arrive for the 4th of July. There's a
That's
game,
crazy.
there's an
Do
arcade
I?
game there, and I think because it's based on the name, it should have stuck out to you, but
No, the name of it didn't stick out to me, but I know what the game was. So can I like describe it to you instead of saying the name? Is it
let's
Shark Attack? Is that the name?
let's hear your description and then I'll judge it
It's like
afterwards.
I remember seeing the pixelated like little shark going to eat like people on boats, trying to eat people in water. It was like one of those games where I think you're controlling the shark trying to eat things, or it's the reverse of that, and you're the person trying to get away from the shark trying to eat you. But essentially, it's a shark attacking people, very much on the nose and in line with the movie.
Mm, maybe we're thinking of two different games here. But
Oh no.
what I remember seeing was someone basically controlling a harpoon, and the name of the game was Shark Hunter.
No. Okay, I that's fair. I was completely wrong then. I apparently was having a vivid dream watching this movie.
So, unfortunately, Kylie, right off the bat, you are getting a bite taken out of you.
No. Wow, we're starting off really strong. Here I was bragging right before we started.
It's okay. Maybe I just put that question there to, break down your sense
To
of
humble
confidence,
me.
to humble you right at the start. But going into question two, what is the name of the island town where the movie takes place?
Amity Island.
There we
The
go.
cutest name for an island, honestly. I love it.
Honestly, it made me think of Amityville Horror. I was like, why would
That's what
you?
it made me think of too. I
The
don't know. I
cute
think that's
would
why
be
I
the
thought it was
word I
cute.
used to describe it. Maybe historic. If we're trying to take like a positive spin on it, off of it, but definitely
Maybe.
not cute.
I thought it was a cute name. Apparently not.
Okay, question three. Which character famously says you're gonna need a bigger boat?
Um, Brody. The
Correct.
which
Yeah.
actually that was an improv for audiences
Ooh.
to know. That was not written in the script.
All right. Question four. What is Chief Brody's biggest fear?
The ocean.
The ocean. Definitely. I put down water. The ocean's definitely correct. In fact, it's more precise, I would think.
Oh my god, water.
Okay. Question five. How does the town's mayor respond to the first shark attack?
He tries to cover it up like every small town corrupt mayor would. It's gonna impact our tourism, so we're gonna pretend like it didn't happen.
Ooh, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. But you know what? Maybe he wasn't trying to cover it up. Maybe the reason he was trying to cover it up, he definitely covered it up. What am I saying? But maybe the reason was not because he was corrupt, but because he just knew the economic standpoint of the town, and they desperately needed this money. Maybe they were on the verge of their own local recession.
Oh my gosh. But to be like, let me just feed some fellow townspeople to the slaughter so that way we can make our tourism marks for the year is crazy.
Yeah. Sometimes a man
He
driven
should
is
have
a
been
man
eaten by a
blind.
shark. I would have liked to watch him get eaten by a shark.
Oh yeah, fair point. Definitely.
I feel like that would have been like true karmic like retribution is him at the end being like him at the end doing like a tour or something and falling into the ocean and the shark's like
Oh my gosh. Now you got me picturing like him just like behind a podium right near the ocean, giving some big speech about how he successfully got rid of the shark. And then a shark just comes up again out of nowhere, kind of like Free Willy styles over him and takes a bite out of his head.
yes, and then his body is just like you know we're like almost in the land of Sharknado with this description here. If we write a spoof version of Jaws, this would be it.
Yes, that
The mayor
definitely.
would get what he deserves.
Okay. Getting back into focus here. Question number six. Kylie, what is the name of the vessel that Brody, Hooper, and Quint used to hunt the shark?
I'm so tempted to pull up my RPG and look it up. The orca, right?
You're right.
Okay.
It is the orca. I'm
I
just
was
looking up quick.
thinking it was something like cuter than that, but it makes sense with it being Quint that it would be called the orca.
Exactly. Well, I'm just looking it up real quick here because I wanted to make sure. I was like, this has to be the reason why. Yes, orcas actually in real life do hunt sharks, so it makes
Yeah.
complete sense
Yeah,
that
that's
he named
kind
his
of what I
ship the
thought too.
Orca.
I was like, they're the real predators of the ocean are the killer shark whales.
The real bullies of the sea. What was the name of the girl who was killed in the opening scene of Jaws?
Chrissy.
You're right, Chrissy Watkins.
Yeah, I love this scene where he's like drunkenly running after her. He's like, "What's your name?" And she's like, "Chrissy," and just like loses clothes, runs into the water.
Perfect. That's what I need. That's my turn on.
Yeah. I know your name now. Oh, so good.
Oh my gosh. Funny thing about that was when I was watching the scene, what I was most focused on were the aluminum cans because I wanted to know, was this the time before the, here, I got a little can to demonstrate, before the little pop offs here. You know what I'm talking about when they
Oh,
actually had the whole, like, you peel back the lid?
oh
You
my
know about
gosh,
that,
I
right?
didn't even notice that. No, I did not know that.
Yeah, before they did the little pop top here for soda cans,
Mm-hmm.
um, the I learned this in an engineering class. Before that, you had like a peel off lid, kind of like how you might peel off like an actual can, like a can of soup, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and what happened was people were polluting those lids all over the beach, and so someone came up with the little pop top instead to
That's
fix that problem.
crazy. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Okay, I
Yeah.
feel like we have to keep that in the episode because that's so wild. I actually have notes on Chrissy's stunts, how they pulled that off, but I'm going to save that for the next episode. So people, you got to come back.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, that was my engineering brain
No,
just getting
I
excited
I
there.
love that. I didn't know that. I learned something new.
Again, back here, focusing.
Back
Got a few more questions.
focus.
What does Quint use as bait to try to catch the shark?
He uses chum, like literally bits and pieces of cut up fish. Which, like, there were multiple times when I was watching it that I was like viscerally a little nauseated watching that part.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, it was gross to look at, but
Yeah, I
apparently
was
legal. It was perfectly legal back then.
probably not anymore, but
It's not.
definitely not anymore.
Okay. Question 9. During the USS Indianapolis monologue that Quint, describes, what specific detail does he recall about the sharks? There's one in particular has to do with a physical trait of the sharks.
Oh my gosh. Oh, their eyes being like black, like looking into their eyes, not seeing anything.
You got it. Black. I'm going to give it to
Yeah.
you. I'm going to give it to you because apparently the line is they had black eyes, like a doll's eyes. You said black eyes. That's the important part there. You got it.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Dang, I thought I was going to get you with that one. Okay.
I thought you were gonna get me with that one too. I'm not gonna lie. But I do know about that monologue because I have some interesting facts that I will talk about next week with the writing of this monologue specifically.
Okay. Man, I got to pick better questions then. Okay. Last question, Kylie. What ultimately kills the shark at the end of the movie?
Oh, it's there's he has an oxygen tank in his mouth, and then Brody shoots the tank, so it goes and does a really gnarly explosion.
Kylie, you have survived the shark attack.
Yeah, with only one bite, I consider that a win. I am shocked that I survived, but I'm very happy I did, and hopefully everybody else learned a little something, and hopefully most of them survived with me.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Ultimately, I want everyone to get out here alive, except maybe Kylie. Who knows?
Yeah, it depends how nice I've been that week. Determines if you want me to survive. But Nick, you were kind of hinting at your thoughts and opinions about this movie with your ratings, with the tomato meter and stuff. So I'm curious what you thought about this movie.
Yeah. So you had mentioned earlier this person off of Letterbox who what I heard you say was the movie felt like it it went on for a very long time or something along that nature.
Yeah, it was like they're like, it was so long, I only watched 10 minutes type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't feel very strong towards this movie. Is I'll just get that out there right at the beginning. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I have enough layman's skill, I guess. A weird contradictory term right there. But I know enough to know that this was definitely a well crafted film.
Hmm.
You know, the plot points all make sense, pacing's decent, and it evicts feelings of horror, which is always important in a horror film, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, but the main thing I just remember about the film, aside from anything that actually happened at the movie, was towards the end. I was checking the time on how much was remaining in the film, and I was just like, I remember like first it was like 30 minutes were left, and I was like, okay, they're gonna kill the shark like any minute now, any minute the shark is dead. No, then it's 15 minutes left of the film. I'm like, the shark still isn't. They gotta have like some scenes at the end to like close the story. What are they doing? 5 minutes were left in the movie, and then they finally kill the shark. And like I say, 5 minutes left, but it could have been closer even to just like that very cut, and that 5 minutes
Yeah.
could have included credits. But I was like, oh my gosh, this was like the very last thing was the death of the shark, and I just remember thinking like I felt like this dragged on and on. I was like,
No, I will say for the first half, I agree with you there because when I actually broke this movie up into 2 nights of watching it, because the first night I got like 30 minutes into it and I started falling asleep, and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to pay attention to this movie if I'm just sleeping through the whole thing. But once, like the second night where we picked it up about 30 minutes into the movie, it felt like much more like horrifying, had a really like the pacing really picked up for me, like this the suspense, the horror, the lovable characters, like all that worked much better the second night that I watched it for me. But like the first bit is definitely slow for me. And it's interesting that you said the ending is slow for you, because at the end I was so locked in. I was like, I, we got to figure out what happens at the end. But the beginning is what really slowed things down for me. But I did
yeah.
actually have like very visceral reactions to a lot of the jump scares.
Oh,
Like
you
I was
know what?
literally jumping out of my chair swearing.
Yeah, I was shocked at the when they went under the water to inspect that one boat, the
Mm-hmm.
capsized
And
boat.
the head, like,
The head pops out. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this shark is brutal."
pretty sure I like jumped out of my seat saying a word that starts with F. Fun.
That's the thing. That's the thing that amazed me about this shark is like obviously we take some time to assess whether or not we could survive the horror movie, and we'll get to that maybe with our new
Next
format in the
episode.
next episode. But I was just thinking to myself like this shouldn't be how a shark behaves.
Yeah.
Sharks don't do this. This is something else.
It was a very crafty shark. It was like, I think that's one of the things I liked about this movie is that it wasn't just a shark. It was so much smarter, so much more tactical, so much more manipulative. Like Bruce had it going on. That's what they named the shark.
Okay.
Bruce, was a conniving little,
He had a vendetta.
yeah.
He was
He
out
had
to
it.
get people.
Oh yeah, like he was he was in his little underwater home being like, how can I destroy all these people? Let me plan it out and make it happen. So he definitely is very, very, I think that's what I liked about him is he wasn't just a shark, like you were saying. He was like a dedicated asshole.
Well, when he pulls, oh my gosh, that one. I thought this is maybe the funniest scene and the biggest like troll that an animal could ever do. But like the scene where the two fishermen are on the dock and they happen to hook Bruce in the line,
Uh-huh.
and the he just pulls the dock off the shore.
And then he turns around and starts swimming at him and they're like, "No."
And then they're like, oh my gosh, and they're just like watching the piece of the dock that he's dragging, like follow them, and then the piece of the dock just like drifts the shore. There's nothing there. I'm like, what a troll move right there.
I know, he was like, "You're not my intended target, so I'm gonna let you live."
I'll
No,
save
it
you for
was.
later.
I'll save you for later. Just know I'm watching. That's the thing though. Is the shark is such a perfect villain because it's so much more than a shark.
Okay.
Bruce is like the boss of villains in this movie.
So here's an interesting question I wanted to pose to you for this segment here, since we both, in a sense, we agree that um, there's some tough pacing. I guess that'd be the word we use for it, right? Um,
Yeah.
for this film. So I compare this to other shark movies I've seen, and
Okay.
the other thing I want to mention is that, like, this movie is great in the sense that it just like propelled an entire genre
It really
film,
did.
the crazy shark movies, things like, one of our household favorites is Meg, or was it The Meg or Meg? Hilarious, just with how much bigger these sharks seem to get every movie.
Yeah. Oh my
And
gosh. And okay, so you're thinking only like shark movies, not like Soul Surfer, not something that was based on a real
no,
story,
I mean,
right?
like, a shark is the imminent threat. I'm talking
Okay.
like Meg. I'm
Like
talking Sharknado. Um,
Sharknado, The Shallows, I think has sharks in it too. The Blake Lively movie from like 10 years ago.
the point I'm getting at here was, I remember sitting through those movies and just like having fun time, laughing at absurdities going on, being excited and whatnot. And I didn't feel that with Jaws. And I wanted to know if you had felt some of the, anything similar, and what you think like that appeal is, because I feel like it's a downside of us being, 50 years later in the future and being exposed to, like, everyone wanted to push the envelope a little bit more.
Right. You know what? I will say I had much more of an emotional reaction and connection to Jaws than I have any other shark movies I've seen. And maybe that's just because like I I mean I saw Sharknado like ha stupid funny fun. The Blake Lively shark movie stupid funny fun, but it wasn't intended to be that way. But I liked Jaws because there were so many more intentional characters, and I love, like I said earlier, I like that Bruce is not just a shark, because I think in a lot of these other shark movies, probably outside of like Sharknado, it's just like big scary. It's not like I'm actively conniving and trying to figure out ways to kill you when I'm off screen. That's kind of what I feel like the vibe of Bruce is, especially because you don't see him very often.
Mhm.
And so I think for me, I actually had a much stronger emotional connection to Jaws more than any other shark movie I've seen. But then again, like outside of Jaws, I'm not a huge fan of shark movies. Um, I didn't grow up watching them or anything like that, but I think for me, I like Jaws because of the storytelling. But I would agree with you that the pacing at times really is like, especially in the beginning, which I know they need that exposition to set up the characters and give them arcs and stuff. So don't come
Mhm.
at me. I get why they did that, but maybe it's just my hyperactive brain that like 30 minutes of exposition really like I was struggling.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. The characters, I was invested in the characters,
Mm-hmm.
especially Brody. I was
Yeah,
just like, man, I want to see how he gets over his fear of the water.
I
Especially
loved
'cause he's stuck on an
Hopper.
island. Come on.
Right? Well, I that was like the craziest thing that Brody, his whole purpose is like the cop, but he's also living on an island and afraid of water. That was a really cool thing to watch him overcome.
Hmm.
And I loved Hopper too. Hopper was, I think, a really cool character, and he was really well played.
Hmm.
I'll have more on his performance next week, but yeah, like the characters, you actually cared about them. Like I
Hmm.
think that's the thing that some of these other shark movies, when they focus only on the gore, you don't really care about the characters all that much. But in exchange for that, you have to give up some of the fast pacing that would come with a shark action movie.
Hmm.
You have to look at it more from the lens of like basically a Steven Spielberg film, something that's strong in character and story, but is also an action adventure flick like Jurassic Park. Like you care about all those characters because they all have deep emotional arcs, even if the movie is like 30 minutes longer than another dinosaur flick would be. So I think because they had such strong characters, they had to sacrifice the pacing of the film a little bit for that. And from the beginning, they didn't even want to make it just a shark movie. That was something the producers and Steven Spielberg all agreed on. They were like, we don't want this just to be a shark action flick. That's just an easy money grab. We want it to be something more than that. And the book, actually, as I'll talk about next week, had a lot more in its plot that they could have gone into that they had to cut a lot of to make it suitable for a big screen.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear more about that. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there about like the appeal of Jaws is the character development, and with the other ones, like yeah, I enjoy watching the Meg whatnot, but not because of character development. No, because I'm like
Yeah.
I want to see that shark, that CGI giant shark, whatever that's gonna come up and do some type of crazy stunt, and some type of absurd way that they're gonna
Yeah.
kill him off, or Jason Statham kicks a giant shark in the face, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's very much like the sacrifice that you gotta make there to make it like a blockbuster, a summer blockbuster hit. But
Mhm.
I'm curious, since you've talked a lot about like some of the maybe not negative sides, but some things you just didn't really feel or connect with it. Would you say you enjoyed this film overall, and would you consider it a horror movie?
Well, so I will say that it's definitely a movie I think people should watch at least once, even if you don't necessarily enjoy it. Just because it's a great way to just, to learn some really important elements of what makes a good film. So,
Yeah,
whether or not you end up enjoying it, I think it should be one that, like, is a go to in a cinema class or something like that.
yeah.
But what I considered a horror film, actually, I would consider a horror movie because I definitely remember, especially as a kid, I had never seen Jaws actually up until the recording for this film or for this episode, I
Oh,
mean.
wow.
But I knew of Jaws as a kid. I
Mm.
knew what it was about. And I don't remember when the whole knowledge of Jaws, entered into my child brain. But I remember for a while that I was spooked about like going in the water. I was like, no, 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 no. Shark's gonna get me. I cannot go in the water.
Yeah. No, that I completely understand that. My parents, I think we didn't watch Jaws growing up. We're like very much an Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park family, but it also gave my parents like a bit of a fear of the water, or as my dad will say, a healthy respect for the ocean. We know what that actually means.
That
But
sounds like something your dad would say for sure.
it's given a lot of people a very real fear of the water, which is why I don't think I grew up watching it. But I watched it, I think, sometime in high school or college, and I thought it was good. But this second time around watching it, like really, like turning out the lights, making it a cozy ambiance, and really getting into it. Aside from when I fell asleep, but outside of that, it was really fun to watch, and especially watching it with people. I think honestly, if my schedule allows, I'd love to see it in theaters with a group of people because I feel like the energy you get watching it in a theater, and maybe this would even help your viewing experience. If you didn't have an emotional connection watching it like mostly by yourself, watching it in a theater full of strangers and watching them react, I think it would totally change your opinion of how you emote to the film. There's nothing better than watching a horror movie in theaters because it brings everyone together in such a unique way where everyone can just scream, laugh, cry while all in a safe space together. So, or I mean, if you're the Minecraft movie, throw popcorn and get kicked out of the theater.
Oh my.
So I think everyone should definitely go like watch this in a theater if you can, because I think the experience that you'll have will be so different than watching it alone or watching it at home, just because it was made for a big screen. Like you said at the very beginning, this is the birth of the summer blockbuster, and the fact that it's coming back 50 years later just for us means we get to enjoy it.
Yeah, that will be interesting, and I might actually have to go into theater, like into a
Your wife
theater.
would actually enjoy it because she likes Jaws. That's like the one horror movie she likes.
That's the thing. I thought she would actually want to watch it this time. She did not. So we'll see what happens.
You
But
know
you know
what?
what?
Surprise
June
her with a
20th.
date night. Her favorite snacks. Go to a cozy theater. Make it like an event. That's, I think, the way to do it. And that's a suggestion to anyone out there whose partners are like, I don't know if I want to watch a horror movie. Be like, actually, it's a date night. It's not a horror movie. And then you get there and you can be like, haha, surprise.
Haha!
I got you.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that's generally what I think. I think it is a horror film. Kylie, sounds like you agree.
Oh, it's 100% a horror film. It gave literally so many people fear of water, and it's like the birth of the shark flicks, birth
Hmm.
of birth of like man versus nature from a different perspective. I think with like sharks, and then Steven Spielberg later went on to do Jurassic Park as well. So horror with man versus nature. That's more what I'm thinking. But I think making a crazy shark flick was very unheard of for the time, and especially doing it literally on the ocean was insane. So
Hmm.
yes, definitely a horror flick, a classic, a perfect one to watch during the summer. It's if you don't want to feel like all the dark and scary vibes, put this movie on. It's
Hmm.
scary but fun because you're in the sun.
What a way to put that. It took me a second to process that. I was like, what?
That's my like second cup of coffee really kicking in as we're doing this. Um, but yes, definitely a classic horror flick. But what we've been watching, outside of this podcast, Nick, as a little bonus segment before we sign off, what have you been watching?
Okay, so I got two horror films that I watched. I saw Heretic. That's the first one that I'm gonna
Okay.
say here. Honestly, it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. It made me a little uncomfortable, but that's coming from the Christian perspective because it touches a lot on religion. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just far enough separated from religion where it's mostly like the villain is like a guy who's trying to be very critical about established religion,
Mm-hmm.
established faiths in general. But overall, it's a survival torture film is what it is, and it was definitely
Nice.
intriguing, very interesting to watch. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that there's this kind of idea of like standing up to people who telling you you're wrong seems to be like a theme going on there, and challenging. There's this idea of like challenging ideas that people just throw at you and say you should believe this because I just said it's true, and here it is. So
Yeah.
I thought it was a great movie for that reason, and definitely would recommend to go watch it. Also, obviously, a good horror film. It's very creepy.
I love that. Well,
um,
that's been on my watch list for a while, actually. So I'll bump it up on the list. See if I can watch it
Definitely
sooner.
take the chance to watch it and let me know because
Okay.
you could definitely talk more about it then. But the other one, this one, I watched Long Legs finally.
Oh yeah, in the advertising they were comparing it to Silence of the Lambs. I think primarily because there was a female detective.
Yeah, no, Kylie, that's why I watched it. I was like, okay, this will be a great one. It'll be like Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs wasn't like bad. Kylie, this movie kept me up for 2 days.
No.
It messed with me so hard.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
here's the thing: it's Silence of the Lambs, but meets the occult. And
Ooh.
we've talked about it before. The occult just, again, maybe it's the faith based background, and whatnot, but just being more open to those ideas, like anything that deals with that stuff, really, really just freaks me out
Oh
because
my gosh.
like of all the things, like I don't know how it survived.
I feel
Oh,
like maybe we'll have to do that one for our show eventually because I
here's
feel
the
like I
thing.
gotta get scared.
Here's the thing, though, too. Nicolas Cage is in it. I didn't realize that,
Our favorite horror boy.
and he is covered in so much prosthetic makeup.
Really?
Yeah, I had such a hard time figuring out it was him at first. I knew he was in the movie, so I was looking at everyone's face. I'm like, "Where's Nick Cage? Where's Nick Cage?" So I'm like watching and like looking at everyone's faces, and then finally there's just this one guy with this really messed up looking face. I'm like squinting my eyes. I'm like, "Is that him? Is that my boy?" And he goes all out crazy in this movie, I will say. He has, as much as he creeped me the heck out,
Mhm.
he had an amazing performance. I will definitely say this. I wouldn't recommend it though to people who, like me with a strong faith background, stuff like that. It's very depressing too. I actually had to
Ooh.
stop like right before the very end
Okay.
because like I had enough towards the end. But if you're looking for that big hit of, scaring you,
Yeah.
go and see it. But in general, it wouldn't be I wouldn't go watch this movie again. But mostly because it creeped me out, and I realized that actually might sound like a big advertisement to people. Go and see that film because it's so scary. Um,
Yeah.
but it's more like I'm bringing it out as like a warning, like, hey, there's some good stuff in here, but this movie, like in general,
It'll
I
mess
don't
with
know.
your head.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I have also been curious about that one because a lot of really interesting horror films came out last year, and I didn't quite get to watch
Mhm.
all of them because life. But
Well, actually, so I just remembered this too. You'll find this a little funny. I was talking with my father about it. He is such an interesting man because he has whatever the mainstream opinion is about a movie, he
mhm,
has the exact opposite.
I love that.
So like I was talking to him because he and I just always chat about movies. I'm like, Dad, I went and saw Long Legs finally, and it freaked me out. And his response was like, Long Legs? I remember that being such a stupid movie. I was like, what? bearing in mind, bearing in mind, people, this is the man who also said he went and saw that Mufasa movie that
Uh
came out
huh.
in Christmas and said
Oh
that was an amazing film.
no!
Loved it.
Oh, your dad though does have some good taste because I've talked to him about some films before. I can't think of any off the top of my head. And some of the things that he's talked about that he liked, I was like, oh yeah, heck yeah. But this is not like not Mufasa, the film
Not
that nobody
Mufasa.
wanted.
Okay.
I want to see Mufasa and Bruce go head to head. We'll kill him in a second. The CGI Mufasa to clarify.
Definitely.
I,
Okay.
I'd love to see some AI tutorial like actually write that out and make it happen. That'd be so interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
okay.
Okay, Kylie, what did you see? What did you watch?
So I've actually not been watching as much horror except for shows for myself because recently I got the ban from Joshua. We saw Nosferatu in theaters, and then our lives got insanely busy. But he was like, "You're done picking movies for a while. We're done doing horror for a while. I am horrored out." And I was like, "All right, fine." So I had never seen The Hangover, so I watched that.
Oh my goodness.
I like having no context to what this movie was about. I had a great time. Like it's such a cute little like unlikely friends meets Vegas, and it's silly and fun. And I kept expecting, maybe it's my cynical brain, things to go really really bad, but I was like, happy that it didn't go that way.
Oh my gosh. It took you this long to see this movie?
I know, and now I have the others on my watch list that I'm going to be watching with my other brother-in-law, Micah. The show, though, that I've been watching is Sweet Pea, which
Mhm.
I accidentally bought like a random Amazon Prime add-on. So now I have access to a bunch more shows. So when I was like scrolling Amazon, I was like, huh, I've been curious about this show for a while. And it's actually really interesting. The lead actress from Fallout and Yellow Jackets
Mhm.
and Arcane, she's crazy talented. She has like a really, really strong performance, and the concept is really interesting. It's basically like someone going mad after losing everything. And taking it out in the forms of physical violence. And that's all I will say because it's like you'll see in the trailers. She like every trailer for this movie show is like somebody I'd like to kill, my boss for being blah blah blah, somebody I'd like to kill, my neighbor. So it's like that's kind of what is leading up to her life falling apart, and then something snaps. So it's a really interesting show. The pacing is really good. I'm only, I think, 3 or 4 episodes into it, but I've been really enjoying that. And it's definitely one of those for like, true crime, horror, gore fans, like you would enjoy this show for sure.
That sounds so interesting. And maybe I'll have to. You said it was an add-on though?
Yeah, it's an add-on. I don't know which add-on it is. It was one of those things where I rented a movie and then I was like, oh, I forgot to cancel that additional add-on so I could rent this movie. But
it might be too cheap then to watch it.
It probably is on another platform too, but yeah.
All right, everybody. So that is our first part of our deep dive, talking about our thoughts and opinions for the movie Jaws. I just want to thank everyone for listening, and a quick reminder again to leave us a like and even share this podcast with your friends, anyone you think will also enjoy listening. Word of mouth is always a big help for us. So thank you everybody for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.